Hi, this is Craig Bott, President and CEO of Grow Utah Ventures. On behalf of Alan Hall, our founder and chairman, and our partner Zions Bank, we're pleased to share with you this first inaugural report of the state of entrepreneurism in Utah, an insider's view. This report is very unique. It addresses a vibrant sector of our economy, the creation of growth businesses in Utah. And what makes this unique is that you'll hear from a variety of experts who have that inside view of what it takes to grow and succeed in businesses in Utah. Most of these people have an entrepreneurial background. They've created successful businesses on their own. And you'll even hear from a few startup companies and entrepreneurs that are leading those. These experts provide some unique insight into the advantages and disadvantages of creating a business in Utah, of some suggested improvements that we all should make to help strengthen this sector of our economy, and some wonderful views and ideas about how to grow more successful businesses. It's presented to you as a leader in the community to guide and shape your thoughts about entrepreneurism and any initiatives or programs that you undertake for the benefit of entrepreneurs. So we invite you to carefully consider all that these experts provide to you in insight and direction, to apply it in whatever field or whatever program or initiative you undertake, and in general to benefit and grow our entrepreneurs here in Utah. Enjoy the views from this wonderful panel.
From my perspective as an entrepreneur, the best thing Utah has to offer is really the quality of the people.
The talent. Entrepreneurs can find all the right mix of experts in the state of Utah to help those products not only be developed, but to be amazingly successful. This is the community that accepts new ideas, and this is a community that promotes those ideas.
Culture that supports entrepreneurialism. Synergy, the ability to work synergistically. It's a tight-knit community, but I think that's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
The lifestyle of Utah, the focus on on a balanced life, the outdoor recreation is just top notch. I mean, if I can find a skier, that lives in Seattle, those kinds of people, that's where I have a home run shot at saying, come out here and jump on board the Doba bandwagon. So the lifestyle of Utah, that's the one that I would pick.
I would have to say the people and the environment. It is such an incredibly beautiful state, and people are hard workers. They want to work hard. They are devoted to their whatever it is that their endeavors are focused on, and so you can really count on them.
I think one of the most fantastic reasons for an entrepreneur being here in the state of Utah is that the support systems are in place and being built upon, and so an entrepreneur can come here and build the best business that they can think of, because we've got the things in place to help them get that done.
A great workforce that's excited about entrepreneurial opportunities. There's a lot of smart and capable people out there that are willing to work in a startup kind of company. So if you're starting a company, you'll be able to find lots of other people that are excited about working in a similar advantage or in a similar situation that's obviously high risk, but hopefully high reward as well.
The best thing that Utah has going for it is our educated and motivated workforce and our strong work ethic that comes along with that.
I think the best thing Utah has going for it, from the perspective of an entrepreneur, is an environment where everyone wants him or her to succeed. Barriers don't get put up generally in Utah. This is a place where people want to rally and see those success stories come from our own people.
Utah's key strength is an entrepreneurial culture that vaults an entrepreneur to the top of the social pyramid.
The best thing I think Utah has going for it is its ease of business and the sense of a cooperative community. We often talk about that, but in many aspects, in the trenches, in a business, I see it being implemented.
The spirit of Utah is just no doubt the best thing going for entrepreneurs in this state.
I would say the best thing that Utah has going for it is clearly the people, the willingness to work with one another, to help one another, and just I think the feeling that we're out there to succeed together. We take some pride in this state, and this has a very good feeling to it.
The best thing that Utah has going for it from an entrepreneur's perspective is the passion. There's a lot of energy here for entrepreneurialism in Utah. And I think that those who get involved in it, it becomes an addiction that you just can't get out of it. You know, whether it's your own company or somebody else's company, you want to help out. You want to help any other company you can grow.
The best thing the state of Utah has going for them is the people. Great people, very entrepreneurial minded. They love what they do, and a lot of networking opportunities to build and grow companies.
I think one of the handicaps that Utah has with respect to entrepreneurship is the tendency of entrepreneurs and young businesses to sort of look at the road right in front of their business, to keep their eyes off the horizon, not pay attention to global matters or partnerships that could be valuable to them that are in the distance. They focus on solving problems right in front of them, and I think we need a longer range vision than that in our entrepreneurial community. Recognizing where we fit into a global economy is important.
I think for a very long time we have suffered maybe from an embarrassment of riches. Even though as we had the great ideas and as we had the great potential here, there was a little bit of a thought that maybe if you wanted the right kind of funding or you wanted to grow the business in the right way, you needed to go somewhere else to do that. That is absolutely not the case any longer, if it ever was here in this state. So we need to overcome the idea that we can't compete with the economies of yesterday. We can't compete with Silicon Valley or other places, because we absolutely can. We just got to keep that talent here and grow it here.
The most challenging thing about starting a business in Utah, I think, is raising the necessary capital to accomplish the things that you need to. And that's not necessarily unique to Utah. I think that's true anywhere that you are, although the capital markets here are not as developed as they are in some other parts of the country. So that is maybe a little higher thing, but the capital with any business is always an issue.
Worst thing we have going for Utah as it pertains to entrepreneurs is still the kind of the backwater mentality that people have of Utah. Or, I mean, it can be broken down to our silly drinking laws as it's portrayed in the media. I'm not taking a position on that. I'm just saying that there is a misperception out there with a lot of people that come here. And I've hosted thousands of people at various events and business meetings here in Utah, and that there is a consensus that we are a little bit backwards in being able to entertain. And so I'm not proposing that we necessarily have to do something about that in particular, but that image persists, and that's an ongoing challenge for entrepreneurs.
The most challenging thing, I think, for entrepreneurs in Utah is the fact that we are not as well developed in the basic things required, both experienced talent as well as various sources of sophisticated funding, to provide those two things, those critical things at the early stage of an idea that can take a promising idea and really turn it into a business.
I think the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs in Utah is our traditional bootstrap mentality. Entrepreneurship today is best achieved as a team effort, leveraging all the available resources.
The biggest challenge to Utah's entrepreneurial community is lack of critical mass, especially in the rural areas, where, again, this human element of like-minded individuals, colleagues, peers that you can interface with and have these day-to-day exchanges. That's just so valuable for an entrepreneur. And if you don't have the demographics there or the people or the population density, it's hard to arrange those kind of forums.
We're going to run out of people in Utah. 2.5 million. You know, Arizona's 5 million people, so it just has to blink and it's already got double the manpower we have. So we'll run out of people before we run out of ideas.
The biggest challenge we face in the state is the lingering perception about what Utah is like, and it's ironic that many of the things that we would really view as strengths in terms of the values, the whole culture here, and the wholesome family environment that we provide, for some people maybe they think we don't offer enough in other areas that would view that as a drawback. Personally, I've loved living here in Utah, and I think most of the people that do come here find that it's a great place to live and a great place to raise family and to build a career.
The worst thing that Utah has going for it from an entrepreneurial perspective would be you either get it or you don't. You're either passionate about it, and that's one of the best things, and then the worst thing is you don't. And early on with our company, I guess we were presenting to the wrong people initially, and when we tried to share our company and our technology with them, people just didn't get it and blew it off and said it'd never work. There was a lot of naysayers. And it was difficult, and so we had to make sure we found the right crowd to get into that we're like, yeah, I can see this working.
The worst thing that Utah has going for it, and this probably comes more from an outside perspective than an inside perspective, is there are a lot of myths about the quality of life, the people, the prominent religion, and how that affects business.
We'll now drill down and take a look at the advantages and disadvantages that face Utah's entrepreneurs. Our panel will discuss some very specific advantages, particularly the fact that we have an educated and skilled workforce with a strong entrepreneurial and pioneering spirit, a culture that supports those that try and even fail and try again, and the fact that our people are well balanced in their lives and motivated. And some of the disadvantages uniquely that Utah's entrepreneurs face. The challenge of legitimacy that a Utah entrepreneur's business faces, the challenge of connecting both nationally and globally, and still some of the funding gaps that an entrepreneur will face in the growth cycles of their business. Listen carefully to what our experts have to say about advantages and disadvantages of Utah's entrepreneurial scene.
Utah has a pioneering spirit and heritage. People are generally self-reliant and self-starters. They're honest and reliable, hard workers. We have a high quality and well-educated workforce. And I think that's primarily where the benefits come from. Something that I will mention that I think is a little more subtle is there seems to be forgiveness for trial and error in Utah. If you begin a business and you're honorable about your effort, even though you're unsuccessful, the community generally will let you try again. Where it's most important is with people who you might employ and with investors where you might raise money. And I think the investor community here, it can be forgiving of entrepreneurs who try and fail, as long as they're honorable and follow through and kind of wrap up all the details. I think we could do a better job of celebrating entrepreneurial success than we do, but there is a fair amount of that going on.
The state of Utah is still small enough that you can do things pretty quickly. You can connect to all the right players pretty easily, which I think is a great asset for the state. The second thing that's very interesting is we have a lot of really great entrepreneurs. For many, many years, we've been known as a place where great ideas start to merge. We have great companies that started with small ideas here in the state, and so people really look at the state of Utah as a place where you can get things done. This is also a place where our community that helps provide the financing is just small enough that they can spot an idea and they can bring in all the right players. So if you're looking to launch that idea, you'll find lots of talent and ready ears also, which is something you don't find so often outside the state.
There are a number of women-owned businesses. I just participated this week in the Women in Technology Awards with MWCN and the Women in Technology Council. I was just in awe. I was overwhelmed. I did not even realize myself the level of women-owned businesses that exist in this area, the kind of things that women have accomplished. Just tremendous. And, interestingly, through that Women in Tech award process, we came to be more acquainted with the Women in Finance group from Zions Bank. And in fact, they kind of pointed out to us the obvious. We are a women-owned business and are going to be funding the purchase of our building, something that this early in our life as Snap Connor PR would not have been possible without that assistance. So I was thrilled. There's more available to us than I was even aware. And it's been a golden opportunity, life-changing opportunity for us.
In Utah, I think one of the biggest advantages is on the people side. There are some really, really smart people here. There are some people here that are very motivated, and individuals who bring to the table the ability to, as far part of that formula, the third that's related to the people, they can definitely excel. And related to that, I think it's a different kind of person than you find other places. It's a more balanced person, which is best for a long-term view of things. I mean, if it's Utah with the environment and the culture that we have, our view, I think, is more like the tortoise than the hare. We have people who do have a vested interest in their church or their civic or community responsibilities. We have people who do have a vested interest in their family and their personal, lifestyle and things. And then they're very passionate about their work and employment as well. And so it's a more balanced, longer-term approach. And I think I like that because we can push hard and get things done, with the best of them, but we're not going to burn out in 2 years or 3 years.
Some of the significant advantages for starting a business here, especially in northern Utah, is the university has been incredibly helpful. There's a number of efforts that are going on around the state. There's 2 or 3 business magazines published here in Utah that I read avidly, and they're very, very helpful, helping me learn about other services in the state, other ideas about sales and marketing, and things that are very, very well done. Some online newsletters and magazines that have been helpful.
Well, I think the advantages of launching a startup or a new business here in Utah are several, and one of those is that there's now in place some infrastructure that will provide that entrepreneur with some resources that they need. So there's now money that wasn't around before, or at least there's more money. We see that there's training opportunities, a way for people to connect. There's a number of things that they can then use in terms of study, that they can learn about how to run their business better. And then there's all these wonderful mentors, these angels who can help run the company. This didn't exist a couple of years ago, and now it's all here.
The advantage to starting a business in Utah is just the attitude. I don't know that there's infrastructure advantages here any more than anywhere else, although there is some good infrastructure, but there's just a real entrepreneurial attitude here. People are very willing to start a business, and I think there's just a real culture in the business community that being an entrepreneur is a very viable option, and I'm not sure why why there's such a culture of that here, but there really is.
I think there's 3 probably key components that I would identify as the reasons to launch a business in Utah. First being the educated workforce. We've been told by our government officials that we have an educated workforce, and we truly do. We continue to have some of the brightest people go through our colleges and universities, and in my experience, tapping into those young individuals as they come out, as they're educated, they're easily trainable and easily put into positions of responsibility, so we can take advantage of that. I also believe that the outdoor environment here, the lifestyle, if you will, is very attractive to investors and other people that want to come out here to maybe to become a customer or partner of some sort. They like to visit Utah. The third would be that there's a true entrepreneurial spirit here. For the past 4 or 5 years, all of the statistics I've seen by Inc. magazine and others have noted that this is a very get it done, do it by myself. There might be a little naivete there, but for the most part, we believe in ourselves, and that's what entrepreneurism is about.
Utah has an environment that's tremendously supportive of business. I think this is a state that is very pro-business. It's very positive about businesses that develop locally and succeed locally. Companies that have had their start here and that have grown here are constantly in the spotlight. They're very much celebrated. I think Utah is an environment that tries to bring all the resources together that can help an organization that's starting up and that has great growth prospects to succeed and fulfill its potential.
There are a lot of things about Utah that make it a great place for entrepreneurship, but fundamentally, I think the most valuable thing is a culture that values and respects entrepreneurship. There are places in this country where entrepreneurship is viewed as being almost synonymous with unemployment. And in Utah, we view it more as the highest form of employment. And we almost feel sorry for those people who have jobs rather than having the opportunity to be entrepreneurs. So that culture really provides the context and the energy for entrepreneurship that I think is almost unique in the whole country.
We nationally rank entrepreneurs per capita and everything right in the top of all 50 states. And that provides a certain energy and electricity that just makes it exciting to be here and do that. The other specific thing is the state government with their online registration, it's very painless. If you could practically do an entire company online for formation and all the legal formalities, where in other states it's a far more onerous process.
Utah, the single most important feature for us is the energy of Utah. The energy is great. The people that we employ are first-class workers, first-class innovators, first-class visionaries. So we get a great staff. Every company we've had depends on the technology and how fast we can develop that technology. So the workforce here is stunning. The educational system the university system is just second to none. I mean, we really, for a state as small as we are, we're really fortunate to have the university system we do. So we put out great people. Our history and graphics, to be specific, the graphics industry started in Utah, and it's because of the innovation and vision that the universities have that whole industry had its birthplace here, and we're following on that.
There is a well-trained business and technical base here that can be drawn upon. And fortunately, there are not excessive amounts of opportunity that will draw them away. That or Utahns are very patient to live out their commitment.
Inc. magazine is doing a big cover story on the climate success on their October issue, and it's pretty exciting what they're doing with that. And one of the questions that they asked us actually was, what is it about Utah that it seems like it's just the hot spot for entrepreneurialism? Why is there so much innovation coming out of Utah right now? I definitely have to say one of the biggest things was culture. We have a great culture here that fosters ingenuity, that fosters making this world a better place and trying to find ways to improve on anything and everything. And those ideas coinciding with all the local support we have and government support, I think Utah is just the best place to be able to start a company.
We have a very big strength when it comes to the early stage entrepreneurial talent and different things like that. As has been said before, in the later stage, growing multi-million and billion-dollar companies, we're probably not quite there yet as from a mature standpoint in the state, but I think the early stage, getting companies started and growing them quickly, Utah is a great environment for that.
I think one of the challenges in building a business in Utah is around the concept of legitimacy. Entrepreneurship can be thought of as marshaling resources in pursuit of a goal or a strategy. You need people to get on board, employees to trust you and come work for you when you can't afford them. You need investors to invest in you when there's still a lot of uncertainty about your success. You need customers to buy from you when other incumbents might be a safer choice. And what drives that participation is sort of this legitimacy that you bring to your business. That's why management is so important. Well, if you're located in Utah, as opposed to another metropolitan area that might have more entrepreneurial activity, it's more difficult to garner that legitimacy, especially from global players that you might want to partner with or employees that you might want to attract from out of town. As an entrepreneur, there are things that you can do to impact the legitimacy of your business and things that you can do that will damage that legitimacy and reputation. And if I tried to focus in on one thing that I see as compromising the legitimacy of nascent firms in Utah, it would be the way that management teams are organized. It's always a little bit of a discouragement to me as a venture capitalist when I see a company come to present and the management team has been assembled through friendships and family relationships as opposed to pure competency. I think there may be a role for policymakers and folks in the community of influence that can help young businesses garner the legitimacy they need to successfully build their businesses and grow. Some of that comes in the form of highlighting the success of those businesses and award programs and competitions and support programs that allow them to get a third-party endorsement from some organization that would be seen as relatively competent and independent.
It still looks like this is the age-old problem. Funding is still an issue. We have great ideas, and there's always that little period of time when you need to take that great idea and get it to the commercialization, where there really aren't really great pots of money out there to get you through that difficult period of time. I think if we can look at opportunities to really get you through that valley, from the time you have that great idea to commercialization, I think we'll have hit all the right notes.
I think there are some gaps in Utah's ability to support. It's based on, there's a lot of entrepreneurial energy in the state of Utah. I mean, the governor does a great job. The government of Utah, we're always very well represented on the Inc. 500, I mean, better than anywhere you typically. We're always represented in however you look at it. We're high up there. But that entrepreneurial energy, what does it need? It needs capital. It needs people and ideas. Ideas are ideas, and capital is capital. And so the people piece is where you run into challenges where, can I find the specific person for that specific seat in my business? And just based on population and size, you have potential to have maybe more pain than somewhere that has 4 times as many people living in a certain geographical area.
Some of the disadvantages that have been we've been warned about, but I have to say I haven't hit them up yet, is people have said, oh, if you're going to start looking for investors, you're probably going to need to move to Salt Lake, or you may need to get a little closer to the airport. And so far, we've been able to self-fund through our contracts, and so we haven't needed an investor as yet. But that's one of those things. This kind of advice I take seriously.
There are still some disadvantages in Utah, but we're obviously going to try and fix those. I think although we do have some angels, we need more. We need more money, and we need more angels participating. We also need to figure out a way to fund the gap between angel money and venture capital. So we're working on ways with banks and others to figure out how we can provide that working capital sum of money for growth. On the whole, though, there's great things happening, and so the disadvantages we'll fix in the next short while.
The capital gap in Utah, I think, is in a couple places. There are a lot of startup companies in Utah. There aren't as many mature companies, and so there perhaps isn't as much of a need for public capital raising by a public company or close to a public company as there are in some other areas. But with Utah having so many startup companies, I think that the friends and family round, kind of getting to that area where you can do a formal angel round from perhaps an organized group, I think that there's a gap there. Although there are some programs, some state programs and nonprofit programs that are starting to help in that area. And then I think there's also a gap in the smaller venture round. There's a lot of companies out there that need just $1 million or $2 million, which is perhaps larger than what they could get from an angel group, but most venture funds nationwide are not willing to invest that small of an amount.
The biggest disadvantage is the location as well. We don't have the connections of an East Coast or a West Coast, and I think that oftentimes East Coast and West Coast look at us as kind of backwater, and I think that's the case with a lot of Intermountain states. Utah stands out, but we still aren't as connected. We can't go to lunch with half a dozen VCs like somebody in San Jose could do with someone or the folks at Sand Hill Road. Also, there's a little bit of misperception about the culture here. We're slowly trying to address that. I know that legislation is trying to address different things there, but people still consider it a little backwoods, and that's something that over time we're going to continue to chip away at.
I think one of the disadvantages is that there weren't a lot of good role models for people who have gone through the process, had outside investors, and had a good relationship with those investors. And then over the past several years, we've had a number of good examples that have helped people see that that's an avenue that works for developing a business.
I think the biggest challenges in Utah associated with starting a high growth or high potential business relate really to 2 things. I think one, it's access to capital. This is not a state for many investors that have experience in investing in startup ventures, have had experience investing, so it can be more challenging to generate that center of gravity in investment capital, although we're making a lot of progress there. Second, I think, is also talent. We are a state that has a highly educated workforce, but in many cases, the people that are here have potentially not had experience in a startup venture with all of the skills required to do that really are unique to that kind of an environment. And as a result, we have people who are eager and are ready to try, but may not have quite the experience that you might find in a Silicon Valley or other areas where startup ventures are much more the norm. Entrepreneurs in the state of Utah, in some cases, I think, don't have the experience of having done it before. But those who do have that experience, it's invaluable to those that can learn from it. And if Utah can find a better way to engage those who have been successful in starting these really high growth, tremendously successful ventures, to help those who are now trying to follow the same path, our hit rate will go up and we'll have a lot more impact as a result.
I think the biggest challenge that entrepreneurs in Utah face is another cultural dynamic. This great Western heritage, almost the bootstrap mentality tends to make entrepreneurs averse to the help that can make them successful. And that irony, I think, is the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs in Utah, to overcome that, because oftentimes we'll use as advisors friends and family who will reiterate those themes to discourage people from retaining a good attorney, or hiring a professional accountant, or from taking venture capital. And those kinds of attitudes then become stumbling blocks. They become hurdles for us to clear because we haven't done the things that successful, proven entrepreneurs have done to be successful.
Sometimes, especially in the rural aspects, you don't get that face-to-face interchange on a daily or weekly basis, and that helps energize, create new ideas, reinforce or evaporate certain concepts you have for developing your business. So you need that human interaction, and anything we can do to facilitate that, I think, will ultimately strengthen our entrepreneurial community. There's a level above the technical skills is this human. What works for you? What did you do? How did you get with this banker? What did they ask? Can you refer me? That whole soft part of entrepreneur rather than the hard skills, that is the part that they're just kind of finding on their own means just out of necessity. And if we can somehow facilitate or expand that networking part, I think that would add to the hardware, so to speak, the skill set instruction that we focus so well on, and just get more return on investment.
The number one biggest challenge today is we're still a state of 2.5 or so million people. So as you ramp companies up, as you get companies to recognize our workforce and move here to utilize that workforce, we're pretty thin on people. We've had an extremely low unemployment rate. Fortunately, we've had low wage, so one way to get quality people is to start escalating wage, and that's a reasonable place to go. But we are running out of people, so we really need to get the kids in. For our industry, science and technology, we need more workers, more of these excellent bodies to throw at the companies, basically.
Utah's not so different than others in the first 1.5 million category. Funds are still difficult to come by. There's a little bit that's being addressed in Utah relative to that. But a continuous source of money to fund the solid opportunities is probably still a little bit of a struggle.
You know, I think one of the major disadvantages that is being corrected quickly is lack of early stage startup capital. Thanks to Allen Hall, the Utah Angels, some of the other angel groups, you know, that's improving a lot. And there are a lot of other angels that are coming up through the woodwork. And you know, I'm very happy to hear about what's happening up in Park City. I just had a report this last week that they had 70 some odd angels in the room for the Park City Angel Group with some really, really heavy hitters. And so the angel groups, the early stage capital, is, especially also with the fund of funds, that's contributing. That's starting to build and help entrepreneurs. But if we were to say today, we're still probably a little short on startup capital compared to the amount of good ideas that are out there.
We've made a lot of improvements in improving the infrastructure that's critical for Utah's entrepreneurs. We now have much more ready access to capital. We've done a lot with technology transfer, commercialization of that technology, and professional services that are so critical are now more available. Our panel now focuses specifically on improvements that need to be made with the entrepreneurs themselves, to help them expand their personal network, to get them the capital they need at the gaps that still exist in their funding, and to really help them with the mechanics of starting a business in Utah. Let's hear from our panel on suggested improvements.
Entrepreneurship in general is, I think, widely recognized as a strong economic driver. And many regions and communities have spent a lot of time and money trying to figure out how to cultivate and instigate entrepreneurial participation. It's very difficult to organize the set of conditions under which entrepreneurship can thrive. One area that I think is underdeveloped in Utah is the concept of networking. It's an overused phrase, but when you mine into it a little bit, you realize that business ideas come from sort of the juncture of experience. So when you get people together, one talking about computer science and the other talking about mining, suddenly those pieces come together and ideas and products and services are created. So people need to spend time together in an exploratory way in terms of developing new business ideas. We talked earlier about legitimacy. A lot of the legitimizing efforts that go on come from the personal networks of the entrepreneur. The recruiting and development of the organization is enhanced by a broader personal network. And so if we could figure out a way to expand the personal networks around the entrepreneurs, I think it would drive more activity regionally. It's one of the reasons why I spend some time on the V100, which is an organization designed to address that. But it's one of many opportunities to try to create more collaboration and opportunity for exchange among entrepreneurs and our talented local professionals. But if you ask me, Greg, are there a couple things we could do to shift into overdrive? What would they be? I come back to networking. I think entrepreneurs as a community of people are not very good at trapping and organizing information about best practices and mistakes to avoid, and we're certainly not good at passing that on to the younger generation of entrepreneurs who are maybe just coming out of school and lack experience and judgment. So we could maybe facilitate that conversation in some way, trap ideas about how entrepreneurship is best practice and figure out how to disseminate that into the community a little better. So that's one point. The second point, I think, is that we're a community, maybe it's because of our pioneering spirit and our self-reliant approach to life, we're good at making inventions and expanding technology. I think we're less skilled at managing customer demand and satisfying it effectively. So if we could shift our focus a little bit from inventing, a little bit more towards the customer conversation, I think we could find incremental success.
I think we need to appropriately fund a couple of those key programs that will foster that. I think U-Star is absolutely essential in that process. We want to make sure that they're given the room to recruit the right kind of talent, to grow the right kind of technologies in the state. In terms of regulatory barriers, I think there aren't too many of them now, but if we can get those right programs, whether it's the Fund of Funds or U-Star, really tapping our associations to assist in that effort, I think that we'll start seeing progress even more than we've seen in the past couple of years.
Improvements that Utah could make that would benefit me are going to come from those two things, the capital and the people. And it's an issue. I mean, we have a software business that's on a certain road, and you get to the point where there's some very specific skill sets that are needed and valued. And sometimes we look around and it's like, we are not sure there is an existing company in the entire state of Utah that somebody could have worked at where they would have gained that experience that we desperately need. So then we're in a position, well, how can we find that person? And so I think a lot of it comes down to, as an entrepreneurial community in Utah, what ways, do we just go do our own thing, or do we coordinate to try to make it attractive for people to relocate here? Because I think at some level, when I think about what I'm going to need, I'm going to need some people that don't live in Utah today if I want to continue the road that we're on.
I know we had a women's group that was meeting in Cache Valley that frittered away, and we don't have that anymore. On the other hand, a new opportunity, one that you're involved with, Craig, is called Seed Cache Valley. And that's been a wonderful strategic way to look at what new ways the state and private and public entities can all come together to try to figure out how to improve entrepreneurship up in the northern region of the state.
One thing that would help, I think, the entrepreneurial communities, if we had this may sound strange, but some larger companies that would actually stick around here. what you see happen oftentimes in Utah is that these companies will grow and they'll sell their company or go public, and then they'll move out of state. But if you can keep some of those companies here, then a lot of those people will have their successes, and employees from those companies will then decide that they want to get back in the entrepreneurial side of things and will start up companies, and you get a cycle of economic growth, and that often comes from the larger companies. So it may sound a little contradictory, but getting some larger companies to stick around or come here can actually help the entrepreneurial community a lot.
I believe that the strongest thing that could be done is stronger legislation. Get some state funding and push it towards entrepreneurial activity. I believe that there is a strong workforce here, as we said, educated workforce, but the mechanics of starting a company aren't understood by enough people in the state. And I know there's a lot of organizations that are being initiated to address that, such as the SEED program, and Grow Utah Ventures is looking at that, and many others. But I'm continually surprised at how many people that I come across in my interactions that have an idea, but they don't really understand the simple 8 to 10 or 15 mechanical steps that need to be taken. And so I think that education process probably needs some public assistance. The ones that I've seen that are starting to get some traction, these entrepreneurial ventures, if a little bit of money, I'm talking $5,000 or $10,000 or work in kind or some grants that way, I don't think that's bad money. And so I'm not just saying mechanics and education of mechanics, I am saying, and it's not going to be a very well received message in these rougher economic times, but I do think that that would not hurt us.
I think what will really help Utah's entrepreneurial environment to be more successful are the kinds of multi-stakeholder collaborations that things like the SEED projects in various parts of the state have accomplished. There's a tremendous effort in those projects to bring stakeholders from the financing community, from successful entrepreneurs, from public organizations that have resources to lend and contribute, really resources across the spectrum that all have a piece of the puzzle that they can help support. If those pieces don't come together in a successful way, the sum total of the environment required to help entrepreneurs succeed is not really there. If we do more of that kind of work, both within the scope of projects like SEED, as well as the efforts of things like the Fund to Funds and other areas where significant work is going on to help entrepreneurs have the ingredients for success, I think will have tremendous impact.
The thing that infrastructurally, if I can use that almost a word, that we should be doing is encouraging entrepreneurs to reach out and to use the resources that are available to them, because none of the resources that entrepreneurs need are really lacking in the community. If you want venture capital, it's there. If you need angel capital, it's there. If you need a professional attorney who's done a venture capital deal or an angel financing, he's there. If you need a part-time CFO, he's there. If you need a good audit firm to help you with taxes or other issues, they're there. They've been there and done that. All those resources are there. The education of the entrepreneur to use those resources may be the final gap. And I commend the folks at Grow Utah Ventures, you especially, Craig, because I see you helping to solve these problems and training people on the importance of raising outside capital and using professional advisors as a part of the entrepreneurial puzzle.
I believe there are some that could use more U-Star help in helping them define an effective approach to business and identify funding that would help them overcome the inexperience that might be there. But it's important to recognize that then they need a mentoring network, which some of us are trying to provide, that bridge their lack of experience into a successful business.
The question and the challenge is, how do you catch them? They're running their businesses 80 hours a week. They really don't have time to go to a lot of the social formal networks because they have marketing plans and payroll to meet. I kind of view it as wild animals. You catch them at the water hole. Where's the choke point? It's when they go for angel funding. And if the various angel groups, and there's only 5 or 6 around the state, would maybe unite and help people to fill out the forms, I think all senses of community would be well served. The angel community would get a better deal flow. The entrepreneurs wouldn't have this reluctance that it isn't worth the effort, I won't even apply.
I would say the 2 limitations we face is we're going to need more people as we develop our software. And so we need more great undergraduates and graduate students coming out with those skills. And the second is it would really be nice if we had a little bit higher density of larger company in Utah. So in Silicon Valley, I would be able to run over to Autodesk or Adobe Systems and already have that social network, that social fabric underneath trying to push our market open. And in Utah, that's a challenge. And it would be nice to have more and more. I know Disney's growing here, Disney Avalanche Studios, Disney Interactive starting a research group here, NVIDIA starting a research group here. So that's all very, very positive. So more and more of that, the large company presence here in Utah would be just a better way, more efficient way of us getting to market that much quicker.
What Utah can do to improve the entrepreneurial growth is more people pay attention to it. I think that it's still just emerging right now, the attention that's getting, the recognition that entrepreneurs are getting here. Once the investors and the certain government departments recognize that, they realize that there's a lot of opportunity here, that Utah's got a lot to offer, and I think that it's bringing more investors together with more entrepreneurs, bringing more local and government support together to be able to foster these new companies that are trying to emerge.
One of the things that I would really like to see is more of an emphasis on sales within the universities, both public and private and different things like that. I think we talk a lot about entrepreneurship and marketing and other aspects, but when it comes right down to it, you know, entrepreneurship and building a successful company, you got to learn how to sell your product or sell your service. And there is a high learning curve, I think, in the state with early stage companies. It's, you know, that we haven't been trained really well on how to build a sales team and how to sell our product or service. And I think those types of resources, probably on the university level, would really go a long way with entrepreneurship in the state.
Now turn the spotlight on some programs and initiatives that are contributing to entrepreneurial success. Initiatives that are undertaken by universities, by government agencies, by the private sector as well. You'll hear our panel refer to some of those that are very successful, such as USTAR, the technology commercialization efforts, the Fund of Funds, even our own Grow Utah Ventures entrepreneurial stations. And some initiatives that are not as well known, the Junto Partners Training Program, Seed Utah, and our angel groups that are being formed around the state. Listen now to the panel of experts as they introduce you to these initiatives so that we might continue to support them as they move forward.
It's difficult to answer the question as to which support organizations are making the greatest difference. There are so many. My first experience with an organization was with the Wayne Brown Institute that has made a tremendous contribution over an extended period of time. The Utah Technology Council, the Centers of Excellence, I think many of these organizations will have been mentioned. Maybe I could focus my comment a little bit on those who are approaching university level students and our bench strength of entrepreneurship in Utah. I see that in today's economy we're doing fine, but what I wonder is, you know, if we're going to have USTAR create these many new organizations in the future, who will be the CEOs of those organizations? And if they're to be CEOs at 35, what should they be doing at 25 to prepare themselves for that experience? And I think the University of Utah Venture Fund has made a terrific contribution there, and the analog at BYU would be the Cougar Club and Cougar Capital, I should say. I just attended a private equity conference down there that was extremely well done, that sort of brought the Utah community together around private equity and investment practice. And finally, close to my own heart is a program called Junto Partners that Alan Hall and I fund, that provides an annual experiment with young entrepreneurs to lead them through a path of self-discovery to find out if they have what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. And it's been tremendously rewarding for both of us, and I think makes a contribution to that up-and-coming entrepreneur in Utah.
the Centers of Excellence program, I think based on the new model of really helping to pull the technologies through the process, is going to have provide great fruit for us in the coming years. I see USTAR as being an initiative that has amazing potential to not only bring the best minds to the state, but those minds that are here already, those that are recruited to the state, are going to start bringing around about the technologies of tomorrow.
Utah Technology Council, UTC, under the direction of Rich Nelson, that has just had a profound impact on our technology industry, on legislation, on the kind of priorities, initiatives, services. Alan Hall serves as the president of UTC. He's just been a remarkable asset to that organization. But on the whole, that really is the premier technology-focused association that has an impact on Utah. And I can't say enough about what they've been able to achieve.
For me, I think the one that I would pick out is the fund of funds. You know, it's definitely not perfect. It's not a silver bullet. It's not, you know, it's not a panacea. Everything is just going to go. But the ability to, you know, encourage and put money where our mouths are and say we're going to try to, you know, get people to invest in Utah, to invest in businesses in Utah, you know, directly, indirectly, you know, and to do that. I personally think that that's probably the one that I would pick.
Some of the groups and individuals that have been most helpful to our company have been, I guess I would have to start back with the Utah State University's Technology Commercialization Office. Dr. Ned Weinshanker and Dr. Ray DeVito have been just marvelous in helping us have the confidence and providing the support to grow at the rate which we're comfortable with, but to push us a little. Because again, having been at the university as a senior researcher for over 25 years, I wasn't really prepared for taking those levels of risk. And so they've been very, very supportive. They helped us connect with the Governor's Office on Economic Development's Centers of Excellence program. That program has been very valuable to us. The director, Nicole Toomey Davis, has been a wonderful woman mentor for me. She's always very willing to help advise me, to answer questions, to help guide me towards the right resources within the state, whether it be individuals, information. Wonderful, wonderful mentor. Seed Cash Valley has been a real boon, I think, to our company as well as all of northern Utah. We've been meeting since April, and 50 to 80 people have been attending the meetings, anyone from beginning entrepreneurs to seasoned company executives to staff from Utah State University, the Bridgerland Applied Technology Center, our Small Business Development Center staff. It's been a great group of people. And the networking that has happened there has just been invaluable. I've met so many wonderful people that have been willing to help. And a number of people I've been able to help already. It feels good to be able to give back and start to recognize that I'm starting to know something and able to share that kind of information with my colleagues that I've met up there. One of the other organizations I think that's up and coming and being very helpful is called the Women's Technology Council. And it's had support by several organizations, I think Verite Design and Omniture, and I can't remember, I'm sorry if I'm not mentioning all the names, but they're really trying to get women together who are entrepreneurs. And I don't think it's focused so narrowly on any one type of technology.
One of the great things that's happening in the state of Utah is under the direction of Grow Utah Ventures, and that is a program called Seed Utah. And for me, Seed Utah is one of the great stimulators to advance entrepreneurism here. And for those who are not familiar with it, it's a great way to go into a community and assess where they stand in terms of supporting entrepreneurs, a plan that is put together to improve it. There's a way to execute on that. And we get everybody in the community, the business leaders, the people in academia, the chambers of commerce, the political, elected officials, everybody now starts to focus on entrepreneurism. That is a significant thing here in this state, and it's going across the state in every county and town. So at the end of the day, we'll have a lot of people thinking about entrepreneurism and supporting it. So I'd have to say Seed Utah is a wonderful program.
I think Grow Utah Ventures is one that's doing a good job of really looking out for entrepreneurs, pointing them in the right direction, helping them to find funding, and as well as helping to get angel groups started. I think the Utah Fund of Funds has done a great job on bringing Utah to the attention of a lot of venture capital and private equity firms that would not have been looking at Utah previously. I think that the Centers of Excellence program is doing a very good job in taking technologies out of the universities and helping them to become more than just a technology, but actually develop into a company so that they will actually look like an opportunity that an investor would be interested in.
We have programs that we've developed, as have other law firms and accounting firms and others, where people can get started, where we can defer fees or reduce fees or delay billing so that those people can get the help they need to get organized correctly, and then we can develop a client that'll be a good paying client in the future. And it just takes a little investment on our part at the front end. So I think the community has a number of organizations and professionals like that who are helpful and provide input and support.
I guess I'd like to talk about two things that I think are really helping the entrepreneurial environment in Utah. One, I'm incredibly impressed with the fund of funds. I think the amount of success we've had in an amazingly short amount of time in developing interest from venture capitalists, in taking the time to look at opportunities in Utah, and as a result put their funds in the ones that they see. Without looking, we never have the opportunity to capture that investment. And I think what they're finding is that there are great ideas here that are very investable. The second program, if you want to call it that I think is tremendously helpful in Utah, again, are these collaborations like the SEED projects. SEED stands for Stimulating the Expansion of Entrepreneurial Development, where stakeholders from both the public and the private sector are getting together to pool the resources they have to make sure that all of the building blocks are in place for the best ideas to succeed, flourish, be invested in, have the quality people required to staff them. And it really is a situation where 1 + 1 = 3. And the more we can do that in various parts of the state, the more successes we'll see.
I would like to talk a little bit about the U of U Technology Commercialization Office. Before actually negotiating a license agreement with them, I've heard all kinds of stories about predatory licensing and everything. And my experience has been 180 degrees different. They've not only been a licensor, but certainly not an adversarial negotiation. I look at them as my partner. The terms were reasonable on commercially marketable terms, but beyond that, they helped refer us to angel communities, other interested people, because they present at networks I never have access to, and they showcase our company and get contacts for us and extend and leverage my activities and my reach on that. So the whole university commercialization, open for business, more friendly for business, from my perspective as a client, is certainly working.
The TCO, the Technology Commercialization Office at the University of Utah, with a new vision of how TCOs work over the last few years, has been an enormous enabler. They're invested in us. They've supported us spinning this company out. The license negotiation went much quicker than license negotiations I've been involved in the past. So the University of Utah is turning around and saying, let's get these companies out. The Centers of Excellence is an enabling factor. They've had huge changes in legislation that were relatively controversial, but they're really spot on for where companies are heading. And then the Fund of Funds is building that venture community here, extending that beyond our just local venture capitalists, is going to be huge for VizTrails.
I think the U-Star initiative has been very, very significant. As I've mentioned in the past, we did work closely with the Utah legislature. It was at the time it was the Utah Information Technology Association, it was the Utah Life Sciences, it was EDC Utah, and it was the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce, all coming together to say, what we're trying to do with U-Star is legitimate economic development.
People who have been in there for the full ride has been individuals such as Alan Hall. As soon as he saw the vision in climate and he got involved in it, he's available at any time of the day when we've got any questions to be able to get some mentoring from him to make our company more successful, helping to make sure we get the local support and investing support from local investors to be able to grow the company to the demands that the market is making. And so, and another individual I'd say would be Matthew Godfrey, who's definitely reached out and helped connect us to any kind of potential customer that we might want to be able to license our technology to, and just opening the doors of Ogden and full support to starting a new business there. Those are two great individuals who have helped us out a lot.
There are quite a few organizations that I've been really impressed with here in the state that I would like to highlight. From a capital standpoint, I really liked the movement that Alan Hall's kind of led, to go out and find other angels that are in the woodworks and bring them to the surface and say, okay, let's bring some more capital and resources to the entrepreneurial community. And as I mentioned before, it's great to see the Angel Group starting up. It's great to see what's happening with the Park City Angels. The Utah Angels have, always been there, and they're doing a great job. So that's fun to see. On a separate note, I like to see what's happening with UTC. I think they are sincere about building Utah's technology environment, and I think they're doing a great job. There's a great network there, and it's fun for me to be a part of that.
As you can see, our panel is as excited as we are about the impact entrepreneurs will have on Utah's economy in years to come, and that our edge in building that economy will be our entrepreneurs themselves, those in Utah who have the drive and the courage to step forward and establish businesses. What you now do with the insight you've gained from this vital report will be really up to your choosing. We hope, though, that you'll benefit from the expertise and specifically the insider's view that our panel has shared with you, to allow it to shape your programs and initiatives that will be of benefit to entrepreneurs in years to come. Our panel now concludes with some very specific comments to you as influence leaders to continue your encouragement for entrepreneurism, to foster your support, and particularly to shape all of your resources and initiatives that would benefit entrepreneurs in years to come. Let's conclude now with these final comments from our panel of experts.
The value of entrepreneurship is now beyond dispute. The number of programs offering entrepreneurship at the college level, the number of business plan competitions, the number of articles about how it drives economic development are demonstrating that we have a growing interest and reliance on entrepreneurship. It is our secret weapon globally. It is our secret weapon with respect to economic development in Utah. It pays terrific dividends for individuals. Individual entrepreneurs are the most satisfied group of workers ever. Not only are they satisfied on the days that they're getting paid for their services, they're even satisfied when they're struggling. They're happy and satisfied because they're engaged in something that they feel like they have some control over. They have influence on their environment. They're engaged in a struggle that's meaningful to them, and they find that satisfying. It has meaning for families. It drives economic independence and self-reliance. It's a good example to set for follow-on generations. And it has these payoffs for communities that I mentioned. It's job creation, innovation, patent filings are all part of entrepreneurship. And finally, when you look around a community like ours and think about whose names are on the buildings, who is creating the sport recreation for us, the ski resorts, the racetracks, it's all exited entrepreneurs that are now plowing back the proceeds of their endeavor to create a richer life for all of us. So it's important that we not ignore entrepreneurship. The payoffs are too tremendous, and there are things that we can do to cultivate it and encourage it, and we should. So I applaud efforts like this to try to create and highlight that important aspect of what we do. In my experience as a young entrepreneur, practicing entrepreneurship from 22 to 48, what I've noticed is that in that age bracket, entrepreneurs are tremendously talented. They have an unbelievable capacity for creativity and problem solving. I sometimes ask myself, what would happen if we could harness that creative energy and that problem solving energy in the direction of complex social problems that challenge us and our families right here in our communities. I don't know how that would happen, but I think it's an important aspect for us to think about. And many entrepreneurs sort of feel like, well, philanthropy is something that I'll do later in my career, and I'll write checks and help nonprofit organizations. But wouldn't it be terrific if we had a rallying place where people could come and get engaged with their entrepreneurial activity, their investment mentality, their accountability mentality, and infuse that into the nonprofit community here in Utah? It'd be terrific. And I think one of the things we're missing is a community foundation. You couldn't find a metropolitan area of our size anywhere in the country without a community foundation. And that thought in and of itself I find interesting. And that may be a piece that we're missing here and that we would benefit from tremendously and might be a rallying point for younger entrepreneurs with creative ideas to problem solving.
The entrepreneurs help make our economy hum. We have some of these great companies that will continue to nurture and develop, but if you want to talk about how you really build that base, you have to look at our entrepreneurs of the state. Look at what they're doing, support them, help them where you can. We have to have those great technologies being fostered and supported here, or we're going to lose them for tomorrow.
First thing I'd say is good job, because I really see, you know, in meeting other people and other entrepreneurs from other places, I really think that the alignment that we have, you know, at those levels, whether it's, you know, at the state government, you know, all the way down to, you know, people involved with the local, you know, colleges and universities, you know, and everywhere in between, I think they're doing a great job of helping support entrepreneurship. I think the challenge is for Utah to continue to grow as a state. It's going to be driven by companies. I mean, small businesses and companies are going to drive that. And again, you have those inputs of people, money, you know, ideas. So, I mean, I guess the second thing I would say is good job first, but second is, you know, we should probably keep anxiously engaged and really pushing this forward, because, you know, the minute you think, hey, we're good and we're a dynamic state and other people have told us that we're that, that's when you're going to start to slip. And you need to really support, can you just continue that support and never say we've done enough, because I don't think you can ever do enough.
Well, there's a number of ways that various entities within the state can support entrepreneurs. I think at the state level, it would be wonderful if there could be some way, maybe that the Governor's Office on Economic Development could identify sort of a point person that we could contact who might have knowledge of how a product or a service that we're developing might connect at a higher level with the state. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but that's something I'd like to work on with the Seed Cache Valley initiative. At the university, one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, several of our staff have been students. And having students have real life experience in working for a small company or a larger company and getting credit for it is happening more and more at the universities. And trying to come up with ways to fund internships for students, undergraduate and graduate students, I think would be a wonderful way to help the pipeline of students be prepared for when they go into the work world.
For you business leaders and individuals in politics out there and at the university level, this is such an important thing for our economic success in the future, is to support entrepreneurism. We're here as private individuals doing what we can, but we would really very much appreciate your support and in joining with us to continue on with this great program around entrepreneurism. Part of the culture here in the state of Utah and the way we invite entrepreneurs to grow and be successful is that there's a component about giving back. That's what we have done as entrepreneurs. Now we're inviting the new entrepreneurs of the future to do the same thing. So they will build great businesses, acquire significant wealth. Then we expect them to put water back into the well from which they've drunk. And therefore, we want them to think about going back and helping the institutions, all those places in the state that have been supportive to them, and making sure that there's money going back in to give the next entrepreneurs and the citizens an improved way of life.
I really think that startup companies and entrepreneurs are really the strength of the Utah economy. And so I would just advise them to look at whatever programs or policies will continue to encourage people to go out and take a great idea and turn it into a fantastic business.
I also believe that the government should be pro-business in everything that it does, and that there's a means to an end here, and that means is put more money into building businesses, especially fast growth entrepreneurial businesses, and you'll end up with a larger tax base down the road, which is what public policymakers want to hear, and that just increases the standard of living. So please continue to support entrepreneurial activity and continue to look at ways that we can address maybe some of the cultural misperceptions that are out there. We thought we did a good job there with the Olympics, and I think we did to a degree, but we continue to hear that, and I hear that from my friends and associates. The reason I think it's an issue is because people perceive it as less tolerant of others. And with that less tolerance, there's a belief that that lack of tolerance is a naivete or lack of understanding or lack of knowledge, and it's quickly portrayed to business. I've seen somebody say, well, you have silly drinking laws. It's almost as easy as saying, you have silly drinking laws, you don't understand business. Well, of course that has no relationship, but the perception is, you know, backwoods, you're not up with the times. Well, of course I'm not going to be able to present a complicated term sheet to you because you won't understand it. Well, that has no bearing, but that's the overwhelming perception that people have had about Utah drinking laws and business.
If I had one thing to say, it would be truly recognize how powerful a tool for economic development this is. When people start a business in the state, they've already made the choice that they want to live here. That's why they're starting it here. And it isn't a question of whether they want to relocate their business somewhere else. It isn't a question of the fact that we as a state would have to throw significant financial incentives at getting them to build their business here. They want to build their business here. This is farming instead of hunting. And we have the ability, I think, in Utah to plant so many more seeds and harvest the benefit of that planting, if I can use that metaphor, for our future economy.
One of the critical things in having a nice density of companies, a nice density of workforce, is if we recruit someone from Texas or New Jersey or California, especially Silicon Valley, right now, if they come to Viz Trails, if it works, that's great. If it doesn't work, likely they're going to have to move back to California. So if we can get a nice enough density, I'm not worried about wage inflation because I want the best people. So if we can get a nice enough density of companies hiring and employing these people, someone will feel far less risk moving to work for me than they would with me just a standalone company out in the middle of nowhere.
There isn't a single person, I think, in this community that doesn't benefit in one way or another from local entrepreneurial support. Just find that vision, find solutions, help people achieve their dreams, and in doing so, it's going to benefit every single person in our community.
We get to see hundreds, if not thousands, of startup companies here in the state, and the challenges they're going through, the resources they have access to, and the goals they're trying to accomplish. And I've been grateful for both the academic, civic, and other organizations that have been supportive of entrepreneurship, and I've seen that, whether it be through the fund of funds. I've heard talks of doing angel tax credits, other things like that allow for more access to capital for entrepreneurs, and other support and resources that allow entrepreneurship to thrive here in the state. That's needed, it's important, I think will provide a significant economic impact on the state. I'm also grateful, and I know I like to keep up on Governor Huntsman and his initiatives and his economic plans, and I think they've done a great job. And so to continue to do that is super important for the state.